It is time for episode 37 of The Condescending Evangelist. And I figured I had to do a video to react. It's kind of a reaction video to some of what I've seen that has been disclosed. And I was afraid this was going to happen. Because when the information about the pastors, what they were told, and what I figured what was going to be released early on, guess what's happening? Well, the pastors look like a bunch of dopes, I think, saying what they're saying. And I'm like, oh, that's a psyop right there. These pastors, these are charlatans. They were set up. But it is, I think, in part designed to make Christians look stupid. It's not surprising. This kind of thing happens all the time. And so the younger generation, that's what concerns me. And so I feel the need, in part, to say what I think is really happening. I'll go to the words of Jesus in a few minutes, but because, well, all that has happened is now the government has basically said, we don't know what we're looking at. Doesn't mean they're aliens. It could be secret government, secret space program stuff. That people have talked about. Area 51. But see, where do they get that technology? That's what all these people who want to say, it's just government, secret space program stuff. Okay, where do they get the technology? Oh, over time, Okay. They've had this technology. The Nazis had this technology. Because we know about Operation Paperclip. We know that they've been working on stuff like this for decades, for almost a century now. Basically, the Nazis have been working on this for over 100 years. And really, it probably is not the Nazis who developed this, because Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, these are Americans. Area 51 was where that ritual was being done. Well, before that, you have Aleister Crowley, who's basically an occultist, and he does this whole thing in the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Okay, and he summons this demon that looks like a grave. So, I'm sorry, some of these people who want to say it's all our government, doing it. No, there's more going on. There is an interdimensional component to this. A demonic component to this. But when talking about UFOs, some would say, man, it doesn't make sense. Why would a demon need a UFO? He doesn't need a flying craft. What does he need that for? Well, read Genesis chapter 6. The fallen angels intermingled. It says the sons of God, but, it's used in the same context as when in the book of Job, where Satan and the sons of God go into the throne room. Well, the sons of God end up on Mount Hermon in the book of Enoch. That's what it is. But it's probably the same location in Genesis 6. Because, well, it's the same story. In Genesis 6, it's before the flood. So, fallen angels somehow procreate with women. How are they doing this? Well, they're fallen angels. Okay, let's get that established. Somehow they're able to shapeshift. Okay, they have abilities we don't understand. Okay, so, but then why would they need craft? Well, they got craft that does crazy stuff. We don't know. They have capabilities we don't understand, but they're not invincible. They're not omniscient. Well, that's all knowing. What is all being able to do? Well, they're not omnipresent. They're not able to do what the Most High is able to do, and they're probably not able to do what angels, God's angels, are capable of doing. So maybe they do need craft, but they have abilities, they have intelligence that's beyond our intelligence, and so, but they're also evil, and that's why they were bound in Tartarus. As it says in I think Second Peter, um, you know, our understanding is so limited. But when you read the Book of Enoch, you get insights that you don't get from Genesis. Genesis is like a microcosm, and then there's other scriptures, but the Book of Enoch goes into more detail, and people will say, "Well, that's not part of the Bible, though." Well, it's part of the Ethiopian Bible. Okay, it is part of their canon. Why is it part of their canon? Some of you saying that we shouldn't be reading the Book of Enoch. Tell that to people in Ethiopia. Why? Have you investigated what was going on there? Why they kept it in their canon? Oh, they must be a cult. Well, they claim to be of the lineage of King Solomon and Sheba. Now, I don't fully understand it, but it does seem to what the Book of Enoch does seem to do is it unravels some of the mystery that seems to be clouded regarding that whole narrative. Here we are today. Jesus talks about the days of Noah, but he also talks about the days of Lot. See, this is something that I think a lot of people are missing. What's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah? Sodom and Gomorrah, I think you're dealing with people, when you look into the Epstein files, I think that's what you're dealing with Sodom and Gomorrah. And so, when thinking about the days of Lot, I think about Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I also think the Book of Enoch gets into some of this stuff, some of this, like, wicked beyond reason, evil continually in their heart that you read about, in Genesis chapter 6. I think Jesus is pointing to in Luke chapter 17. I don't know if in other Gospels. In Matthew 24, he doesn't mention the days a lot. He mentions the fig tree in Matthew 24. So I put it all together, and I say, okay, I see Israel, but a counterfeit to true what is the true Israel, which is those who have been grafted in to spiritual Israel. It's a nation, which means what? It's a people. It's the people of God. Is the current secular state of Israel that was set up in 1948. Does that line up with those who are grafted in that Paul talks about? I'll wait for my response. Someone go ahead, comment below and tell me if the secular state of Israel that was set up in 1948 is the same Israel that Paul talks about, who we are, who are true believers in Christ, regardless of whether you were born into the bloodline. It matters what matters, because if you were born into the bloodline, but you don't accept Christ, you're cut off. If you're born into the, if you're a Gentile, you weren't born into the bloodline, but you do accept Christ, you're grafted in. That's what needs to be understood here. And that's why I say, okay, in Matthew 24, learn the lesson of the fig tree. Well, go back to, I think it's Matthew chapter 18. And Jesus is wanting to get some figs off a fig tree because he's hungry. And he didn't have any because it wasn't in season. So he condemns it. What does that sound like? I do think that's a version of what's going on with Israel today. The secular state of Israel. I don't want to call it the Jewish state of Israel. Even though that's kind of a wrong way to think of it, because it's like, well, it should be called the Hebrew state of Israel. Because the Jews are just one tribe. Judah. That's just one tribe. So to me, if anything, it's okay. It's just one of. It's just Judah saying, "We're all that matters." Right? We're the only one that matters. That's why it's people have to get back in the Word, back in the Scriptures, and say, what am I looking at here with this UAP stuff? Well, I mean, people are saying all kinds of things. And, oh, it's just secret space technology. Okay. It's just government, military technology. Okay. Where'd they get that? Why are they hiding it? Well, we don't want the enemy to know. I bet you the enemy has far more advanced. I bet you Russia has more advanced stuff. I bet you China has more advanced stuff than we do. So why are they really hiding this stuff? Because I think they got it from the Nazis, who got it from interdimensional entities. That's what I think. And then, like I said, in the Book of Enoch, it does get into like some technological stuff going on that was going on in the antediluvian period. And that lines up with, well, gee, I mean, we see these monolithic structures in various places of the world that seem to be, that are ancient, definitely in origin, but seem to have advanced technology. It's like this is not just made by simple tools. Yeah, no. This is precise, the type of drilling that you see is very precise, like it's laser, like highly advanced. And so, you know, and there's other ancient texts that do kind of indicate stuff like this. And, you know, people will take other, like, ancient texts and say this discounts the Bible. Because look at this stuff. This is just, the Bible's just taking from that. Well, Book of Enoch was written before the flood, more than likely. I think it was. Why? Jude quotes it. Jude was one of the apostles. I think he was one of Jesus' brothers, because he had Judas Iscariot, right, who betrayed Christ. But then he had there was the other Judas, and I think he was one of the apostles, one of the brothers. You know, James was a brother. I think Judas was another brother. And I think Jude, in the book of Jude, directly quotes Enoch, the prophet, which to me, see, that's how God works. If God wanted to preserve his word, how would he do it? In a way like that. Peter also references the book of Enoch. So you have two witnesses. That's all you need. That's all you need. And so for me, that's enough to believe that Enoch was a prophet, and his writings, even though you have like maybe some discrepancy between the Ethiopic translation and the Greek translation, that happens. Nothing's perfect. Only God is. But if you get the general narrative, it does kind of point for me to, okay, it was other ancient texts that were stealing from Enoch, and maybe other books that were written prior to the flood, possibly. That's what that seems to indicate. And so I'm just going to read Luke 17. This is verse 22, and I'm going to read all the way. I'm gonna read all the way to 35, 22 to 35. Then he said to the disciples, "The time is coming when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. People will tell you, 'Look, there he is,' or 'Look, here he is.' Do not go out or chase after them. For just as lightning flashes and lights up the sky from one end to the other, so will be the Son of Man in his day. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by his generation." It's kind of interesting when I think about it. "Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the days of the Son of Man. People are eating and drinking, marrying and being given in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all." Okay, so that's Noah. All right, and the same it was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But on the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. It will be just like that on the day of the Son of Man. On the day the Son of Man is revealed, on that day let no one on the housetop come down to retrieve his possessions. Likewise, let no one in the field return for anything he has left behind. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever tries to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will preserve it. I tell you, on that night, two people will be in one bed, one will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left. So you have Jesus referencing in the same. Now, like I said, in Matthew mentions the days of Noah. He might have been talking about something completely. It might have been a different time. So Luke is referencing him talking about both Noah and Lot. Like I said, what's the deal with Noah and what's the deal with Lot? Noah has to deal with what? Well, like I said, was it just people acting unrighteously? No. Let's go back to Genesis 6. All right. Now when, let's see. Yeah, let's just start with verse 1. Now when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took as wives whomever they chose. Now, I haven't done a deep dive on this, but I'm 99% sure the sons of God are not the sons of Seth referenced here. It's the same verbiage, Hebrew term that's used describing the sons of God in the book of Job, where there's definitely angels, Satan's fallen angels, basically. Okay. So the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and afterward as well, when the sons of God had relations with the daughters of men, and they bore them children who became the mighty men of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw the wickedness of every man was great upon the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was altogether evil all the time. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, every man and beast, and crawling creature, and bird of the air, for I am grieved that I made them. Noah, however, found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Now, so in the days of Noah, you have the Nephilim. Okay, Jesus is referencing like eating and drinking, just normal everyday life activity, but he's saying it'll be as the days of Noah. Well, what's going on? Same thing was going on, right? Except what? The Nephilim. And then it also says that there was evil continually in man's heart. And so it grieved God that he created man. I used to like look at that and think, why would it grieve God that created man? I mean, how, then I thought about it, like, well, he didn't intend for what happened to happen. And so he had to do what he did. Why? Because the whole earth was filled with violence. And there was evil continually in man's hearts, except Noah and his family. So he preserved mankind through Noah. And so, but then he goes on to talk about Lot. What's going on with Lot? Sodom and Gomorrah. What's going on there? I think we should consider there's disclosure going on. We've had partial disclosure regarding what? The Epstein files. And now we're getting partial disclosure regarding aliens. I think one pertains more to Sodom and Gomorrah. One contains more to basically the days of Noah. And I think that's why we got what's going on. And why we're not going to get all the answers that we may want is because well, this is now God basically giving his people, those who may not be repenting. He's saying this is it. You guys need to get you need to no more playing around. You know, this is it. No more playing around. And so that's how I see it. Are we getting closer to tribulation? A lot has to happen. I think. I think there's still a lot has to happen, but I think this is setting the stage, so to speak, because I think we are entering in what is now known as the days of Noah and the days of Lot. I think we've entered into that. The start of it. Okay. See, with Epstein, well, a lot of that stuff has happened. Well, so is the stuff with UAPs, but we're still in the dark on kind of both things. We're going to come to a time period, okay? In the days of Noah, you probably had the same stuff going on, but it also was going on in the days of Lot during Sodom and Gomorrah. So, what's going on with the alien disclosure, I think is connected to what's Epstein disclosure. Because the Epstein stuff deals with occultic stuff that goes back to Aleister Crowley, who summoned up a demon. So that ties to the interdimensional beings. And so, people are saying all kinds of things, but they're not connecting the dots. And I think then you can thereby conclude Israel, the secular state of Israel, is part of this. After all, it does seem all end time events seem to be centered in Israel. So people say, where's America in prophecy? Well, we're kind of, America's going to be kind of partially, if not fully, responsible for bringing in the end times, actually, because of the occultic stuff that has occurred, some of the political stuff, some of the financial stuff. When you talk about the Federal Reserve Bank, which builds up the military-industrial complex, the war machine, and even Burchett, in context of talking about disclosure, he's talking about the war pimps. And we're getting this through the Department of War. And someone say, well, it's the Department of Defense. Okay, fine. Same thing. The military. And so it's the military industrial complex. The secret space program, DARPA, basically. People are going to start looking more into that. But see, I'm going to maintain this. I don't, if you have a secret space program, that means you have technology that's way advanced, that's probably of a different dimension. That's my thought. And say, why would demons need spacecrafts? It's not the demons that would use it. It's the fallen angels that would be using spacecraft. Why? Because they're fallen. They're decaying, I think. That's an indication that they don't have the abilities they once had. And if they come into our world as they have, in this world it's a fallen state. So they go between their realm and our realm Their realm may not be fallen in the same way our realm is. And so they need spacecraft. They probably developed it in their realm. And then they bring it into our realm. That's how I see it. We're only getting partial, but I can kind of figure out what's going on, because there was an agenda. There's an agenda to basically say we're part of a galactic federation. That's why I don't want to believe in the Big Bang cosmology. I think that's bunk. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. I think God will preserve. He will preserve His word, and He will figure out a way to put His truth, because there's a lot of us that don't understand, and he operates on His timing, and this people are not buying this deception, in part because of some of the alternative cosmology that's been thrown in. That's, people are starting to realize NASA is a front to the CIA. That's all they are. And NASA was set up. I forgot the name of the woman. She worked with Wernher von Braun. Apparently, Wernher von Braun let her know the whole plan. That NASA was set up to basically stage a fake alien invasion. That's the whole purpose of NASA. And we're with some of what's been put out there regarding Apollo 17. Some of what's been put out there is exactly that. Because now they're saying, oh yeah, they saw aliens. They saw, yeah, according to a 33rd degree Mason. The one who's now saying that we didn't go to the moon. He's got dementia. What's his name? Buzz Aldrin. He's now saying we didn't go to the moon. No, you didn't. He's on Conan O'Brien. Conan O'Brien saying, I remember watching you. No, you didn't. I think he's got dementia. And he's telling that's part of what's been happening with him. He's telling the truth. And so, like, yeah, I'm not gonna believe anything he's saying. But with his dementia, no, actually, yeah, because his brain, his filter's gone, so he can't lie anymore. It's marvelous. And so that's what, NASA was set up to stage a fake alien invasion. And that's what's, apparently that's what these pastors are saying. The problem is they're out of order. They need to shut their mouths, let some of this stuff come out, because now they look stupid. Which means what? Christians look stupid. And so we're just going to have to, rely on certain people to just say what is happening. I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I don't. Okay? But, come on. Pastors are having a secret meeting, given a briefing of some of this stuff. They put it out there. and then one of them had to roll it back, and it's like, oh, this is a crap show already. Um, and so now the stuff comes out, and people are saying that that's it, and it's like Burchett is saying, well, they're gonna roll out just they're gonna spoon feed you in essence, and then they're gonna roll out the holy crap stuff. Well, why not give something more substance at the start? Like something that you can actually look at and say, yeah, that looks. Because I've seen more stuff that looks more like actual UFO, actual not of this world, than what they're just showing like little teeny dots, things moving around. I'm like, you know, and so all I'm saying is, I had a real problem with that, knowing that they were going to just kind of deliver kind of nothing, and but tomorrow and the next coming few days, they're probably going to release some more meteor stuff. Not meteor. You know, gotta be careful what certain words I use. Because people meteor, what meteor, like more substantial. We're gonna see more substantial stuff, I think. Um, but it's the bad seed's already been sown. So I myself have to make a video to explain what I think could be happening. It's tied to Epstein, and people think, how's it tied to Epstein? Well, like I said, go back to Aleister Crowley. He has this does this ritual in one of the pyramids in Giza, and he summons up a demon that looks like an alien gray. Okay, so we're getting more, and then Jack Parsons in the 40s, Roswell, which I think is tied to Israel. Babylon working, Roswell, I think that's because then CIA is created right after that. And so I think the CIA is going to work on gaining influence into Israel right away. Because these people are occultists in Israel. Come on, it's not hard to put those dots together. You want to control. How do you control the world for real? Well, what are the three most influential religions in the world? Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, right? They're all centered. Their main center of everything is Jerusalem. Now, the Muslims do have Mecca. Christians have the Vatican. Catholics, but people will say, well, those are the Catholics aren't real Christians. The Vatican's not really Christian. And I would say, yeah, because I don't think the Pope is. I don't think Peter was the first Pope. That's a lie. Because there's no archbishop that's mentioned. And then the papacy is basically a bishop of bishops, an archbishop of archbishops. Right? That's what the Pope is, in essence. And it's really a pyramid scheme that the Catholic Church created. Because you have basically the Pope at the top, then you have the archbishops, and then you have the bishops, and then you have the priests. Right? And then you have the monks. I mean, it's actually a pyramid scheme that the Catholic Church has created. That's not what God created. It's paganism. Paganism has kind of the same kind of concept. Jesus had 12 disciples. He's the head. If he created a pyramid scheme, it's actually the true pyramid. He's the head. The apostles are the next level. But then you have evangelists and you have pastors, teachers. But everyone's kind of the same. You know what I mean? One's not above the other. And even Jesus himself, when we get to heaven, when heaven comes down to earth, which is what happens, we're joint heirs. We're all equal. The first shall be last, last shall be first. It's not a pyramid scheme. That's the difference between true Christianity and fake Christianity, which is how I view Catholicism. Sorry if you're Catholic. That's how I view it. Because I think that was a pyramid scheme that was created. Probably one of the most successful ones that's ever been created. I'll say that. But that still is why Jerusalem is a desire to have control of that. It's desire because Christians, Jesus says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Jesus rose from Jerusalem. Right? I think that's where he rose from. He died right outside the city, right? I believe he was buried in a grave. I think in the city. I'm not 100% sure about that, but Jerusalem. That means Jerusalem's kind of the center of everything. I think, well, where is he returning? Mount of Olives, right outside Jerusalem. He's going to walk through the east gate. Means the temple's going to be there. I don't know how that's going to all play out. I don't know. But aliens and Epstein. It's all part of an end times scenario. That's how I see it. Setting the stage for the tribulation. So I don't know what more I can say. I'm just going to review more information before I make another video. I think it's important to go to the scriptures. You can review the information, but the problem is, Jesus says, "Let no one deceive you." Don't. The reason I shared scriptures that I shared, because I see a parallel with Epstein and Lot. Well, I mean, Epstein and Sodom and Gomorrah. I see a parallel with aliens and the days of Noah, right before the flood. And so, go to the scriptures. And don't be afraid to read the book of Enoch. Because it's quoted by Peter and Lot. Or Peter and Jude. 2 witnesses, all you need. That means if it's not canonical, it was certainly read I don't know how it cannot be canonical if Judah is calling Enoch a prophet. And the Ethiopians, they had no problem. I don't know why the Council of Nicaea and King James both said no. I don't know. I don't understand. People want to hold on to their own version of Christianity. I want to hold on to what is the truth. And if the Book of Enoch is canon, well, we should be studying it then. Particularly in these times. And it does say, the second verse does say, it was meant for a generation in the distant future. That's what it says. Which tells me we should be reading it. We should understand it. Because we might bet that we might be that generation. And I don't want to stand in front of the Most High and say, "Oh, I didn't study it enough. Sorry." When it was presented as how I perceive it. And, people will say, you don't need it. It's all in the other scriptures. There's more information that basically gives answers to questions that a lot of people have had. So why not read it? And figure out if it is canon. Why did the Ethiopians? It's the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. I don't care if it's Orthodox Church. I mean, they're Orthodox. That means the term Orthodox means, I think it means truthful or original. I think it's something to be truthful and original, something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it has to do with being the standard, setting the standard. And somehow the Eastern Orthodox went along with the Western Church when it comes to the canon. So, I don't know. There's other books too, like the Ascension of Isaiah. And I think I don't know if the Book of Giants is one of the books too. Not sure, don't quote me on that. But I think there's 88 books total. The Apocrypha has 73 books, apparently. In the Catholic Bible, see, they removed 8 other books, I think, in the Apocrypha. I have a Oxford Study Bible that has 15 books. So it actually has 81, but it doesn't have seven books that the Ethiopian Bible has, which has a total of 88, I think, which is interesting to me when I think about that. Just saying. Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Goodbye, Toledo.